Shalom, sisters of Israel. Welcome to Fruitful Possession. My name is Sister Jemima from the House of Jacob. Welcome to What's for Dinner. Okay, so now that you got your one bag of sweet potatoes from the supermarket, you're bringing them home, you're washing them off, washing your hands off, getting the counter clean, everything. You place them in the pan, turn the oven on to 425, and bake it for 45 minutes. After that, you're going to take them out, check them to make sure they're soft. If they're ready, after pinching them, just take the skin off, all of them, put them in the bowl, and begin to mix and add your seasoning. So I'm pinching it right now to make sure it's ready, and it's ready. I'm going to pull the skin off. Now I'll pour it in a bowl, and then I'm going to put the teaspoon of pumpkin spice in there, a teaspoon of cinnamon in there, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of cane sugar, pour it over the sweet potatoes with no skin on it. That looks good. Then I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of grapeseed oil or olive oil. Both are very good choices. I'm going to pour that on there, that 1 tablespoon. There you go. That looks good. And now I'm going to take 1/4 cup of almond milk and just pour that in there. You can add vanilla extracts to it. Is really up to you, but I'm not going to do that this time. So then mix everything together, and you can adjust the seasoning, to whatever you like. That looks good. See, now it's pretty much ready now. It's ready to serve. Doesn't that look great? Your Lord, your husband will love that. Your family will love that. That looks great. Good job. All right, I'm going to show you how to make pineapple lemon unleavened bread. So you need 8 ounces of chopped pineapples with the juice. You're going to put it in a blender and grind it up where it's going to be like a puree, just like this. That looks great. That's mixed with its pineapple juice. That looks nice and soft. That's 8 ounces of pineapples chopped up. I'm going to pour that in a mixing bowl. There you go. So that's the first ingredient. Now I'm going to add my oil, my olive oil or my grapeseed oil. That's what the puree looks like. Now I'm going to put 1 cup of cane sugar in there. Mix it together for a little while so it can get really fluffy. We're going to add other ingredients too, but I'm going to mix right now. Get everything combined together. That looks great. So now there's the flour, coconut flour, almond flour, or gluten-free flour. You're going to squeeze 1 lemon, put the juice inside there, And then you're going to add 4 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. I'm using that instead of the egg whites today. Much healthier. You won't taste it, and it's going to make it really chewy. I'm going to add the water. There's the water. Mix together. Mix it real well. You won't even taste the ground flaxseed. It'll make it chewy. That looks great. Now I'm going to spray the pan. Some olive oil or some avocado oil. I sprayed a little bit too much, so I'm going to wipe some of it away because I'm going to pour the batter in there, and I want it to be really nice. You can use a paper towel, something like that, and discard it. Now I'm going to take the batter and pour it into my pan. Or you can get like a 9-inch casserole dish, but I like my cast iron pan, so I'm going to use that. That looks great. I'm going to bake it in the oven on 350 degrees for 40 minutes or so. And then I take it out. See? After 45 minutes, that looks great. It's done because there's nothing coming off the fork. And you may poke it in different spots, and that's okay. But I just checked, and it looks wonderful. It didn't overcook. It's like a golden brown. And I baked it for 45 minutes on 350 degrees. Yep, that looks great. And that's pineapple, lemon, unleavened bread. And it's very delicious. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make a mixed vegetable stir fry I learned using asparagus tips. And I'm just looking at them now just to make sure they look great. And here's some great advice on benefits of them. So I'm going to look at them now. I'm going to cut them in half. I'm going to discard the bottom portion. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the top ones, the asparagus tips. I'm going to put some broccoli in it, 1 cup of that. I'm going to cut those broccolis in half so it'll be easy for cooking. And then I'm going to use 1 cup of green peas, 1 cup of carrots, baby carrots. I'm going to put them all together in a bowl and wash everything off. Clean that off real well. I'm going to add the carrots to it and clean that off as well before I start cooking it in the frying pan. That looks great. So we always want to wash our hands, wash the food off before cooking, clean the counter off. It just is much easier for you when you start to cook. Okay, so now I preheated the pan. It's on low, so I won't overcook it. Put some oil in there. Now I'm just putting everything in there. I'm putting the whole mix in there. I'm taking my time. The stove is on low. This is going to take about 30 minutes because I want to cook it slow. I don't want it to get soggy. The asparagus tends to get soggy if you overcook it and you put too many things in there. So I didn't put any water in there. A little bit of water may have been dripping from it as I ran it under there, but I'm just going to be stirring everything now. I'm adding the seasoning. I'm putting about 2 tablespoons in there, but you just put a generous amount of vegetable seasoning. The seasoning that I put in there, there's no sea salt on there. There's no Himalayan salt. So I'm going to add a pinch of it. So that's my veggie blend. I'm going to shake a generous amount in there. And I think I put about 2 tablespoons in there. But there's no salt in this one. So I'm just putting a generous amount in there. And I will add like a teaspoon of salt to the whole thing. And then I'll lightly spray it with olive oil and I'll just cook it for a little while. And I'm going to monitor it every 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm going to be tossing it all the time to make sure it's doing well. And the reason why I don't have it on medium heat is because I put seasoning in it. And if the bottom of the pan gets too hot, it'll start sticking with the broccoli, things like that. So I'm just taking my time. I'm tossing it. And then I'll put the lid back on. And it doesn't look like it's going to cook, too fast at first, but it does well. When you cook it like this for about 30 minutes and you're tossing it, You don't overcook it. You're just moving it around, and the carrots get a chance to get soft but not mushy. So I'm stirring it and stirring it, and it's almost done. I put the lid back on there, and I'm checking it every 5 to 10 minutes. It has a nice aroma to it. It's not too salty. It's not too rich in flavor, but it's very good. You'll appreciate the seasoning you put on there and the veggies you added to the pot. Yeah, that's looking great. Okay, here's another recipe. So I didn't have a chance to show you this one, but I actually marinated this. I marinated this lamb. You could do this with pot roast. You could do this with beef or lamb. So I marinated this overnight with those seasonings, and this is what it looks like the next day. It's not cooked, it's uncooked, but it's been seasoning all night. And now this is the roaster where I'm going to put it in. And I'm going to put it on 350, and I'm going to cook this one. This lamb was about 2.5 pounds, and I'm going to cook it for about an hour and a half on 350. So I'm going to preheat it, and I actually oiled the inside of it lightly. And this has got barbecue on there and some other seasonings. So this roaster is great. It cooks it very nicely and makes it very tender. And now I'm gonna transfer it to the roaster. So I'm gonna make sure that tray is really close to the roaster. Yeah, so that's a boneless piece of lamb, but you can also use beef as well. And you place it down in there, and all that leftover marinade right in there, I'm going to pour it on top of the lamb. I'm going to pour it right on top so that it can just drown in the seasoning. And then we're going to use that. We're going to use this leftover too. Once it's cooked, we're going to pour that back on the lamb. So this is uncooked, and I'm going to cook it for about an hour, 20 minutes, or an hour and 30 minutes. I'm going to cover it and let it cook. So I could have put it in the oven, but it cooks better for me. I like the way this cooks. So this has been in here for about an hour and a half now. So I'm going to take it out because I know it's done. Once I start looking at it and poking at it, and if the meat falls off of it, I know it's tender, it's perfect. So I'm going to take a fork and just kind of see how the meat acts. And see, I didn't even have to cut it. Look, it's falling off. I'm poking at it, and the meat is just really tender. It's only been in there for an hour and about 20 minutes or so. And you want to make sure you cook it well done. So that's what I'm doing now, just checking to make sure it's tender. Look at that. And it's well done. And we're going to use all that broth you see in there too. We're not going to throw that out. Of course, you want to cut it. I'm pouring the broth over there. See? It keeps the seasoning in there. I'm going to add it to that. The vegetables we cooked earlier. You can use it for leftovers. You can serve it for dinner. Your family can take it for lunch too, so you don't have to buy a lot of things outside. Because you made so much, you have plenty of leftovers. All right, let's go on to the quinoa. Now this is really easy. I didn't really put a lot of seasoning on this, but once we fix this up, it'll be great for the vegetables to lay over. So quinoa has a lot of benefits in it. And what you want to do is, when you start putting things together, you want to wash your celery off and chop it up. So I'm chopping it up here. So I usually cut up everything. And then I'm going to pour the water in the pan because I'm getting ready to get the seasoning ready for the quinoa. So I'm going to sprinkle some thyme in here. You'll be the judge on this one. Just sprinkle a few sprinkles on there, a nice amount. It's not going to make it taste bad if you put too much because they're just natural herbs. Dill weed too. And now I'm putting a little bit of Himalayan salt in there because there's nothing in there. I want to make sure it softens up the quinoa. Now I'm putting the quinoa in there. I'm going to spray a little avocado oil on there. Now it's cooking because I have it on medium heat now. And I pour the celery in there and I'm going to stir everything together. So vegetables are really good for you. So even though we made a mixed vegetable side dish, it's always good to add more to your other side dishes. So I'm going to let that cook on medium, low to medium, for about 15 minutes or so. I'm going to add the carrots. I add more carrots here because as you have leftovers, you want to be able to use them in different things. And carrots are always good, and so are celery. So I'm stirring it. And you'll know it's done when there's no more broth in the pot. So I'm going to put the lid on it to make sure the quinoa gets tender and the carrots get tender. Now I'm going to turn the stove down a little lower. It'll be on low to medium. I'm just going to take a fork, though, halfway through to see how much water is still in the pot. That tells me how far I have to go before this is finished. This really only takes about 20 minutes, 20 minutes to cook. And then you have plenty of leftovers. And you're always getting a lot of vegetables and whole grains in there. So this looks like it's almost done. I'm going to check again. I'm looking at the bottom of the pan to see, is there a lot of water in there? Is there water still in there? Because you don't want it to be mushy. So now that I know that the water is almost out, it's pretty much done now. So I don't see any water there. So that's pretty good. That means it's practically done. And the carrots aren't too mushy. They're soft, but they're not mushy. So this is a great time to stop. Okay. Perfect. All right, so that's done. I took it out and that looks great. And that's going to go as another side dish. And this would be great as leftovers as well. You can always put a portion of it in the freezer for another time when you don't feel like cooking. You can pack half of it away. Enjoy.
Keep it lawful. Keep it healthy.